Defense News. It's proudly sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union. If you're a member of our nation's armed forces, the Department of Defense, or if your family is, we'd be proud to serve you too.
On this episode of Defense News Weekly, Morocco has built an air defense base by its biggest cities. Our Middle East correspondent brings you the details. Plus, the Army finally picks an optic for the next generation squad weapon. Todd South shows us how it will make soldiers and Marines better warfighters. Plus, changes to Navy boot camp based around the Sailor for Life model. And later in Mil Tech, coffee on steroids? The Pentagon is looking to increase troop brain activity with stimulation devices. With the latest news and analysis from the Pentagon to the platoon, this is Defense News Weekly. Welcome back to Defense News Weekly. I'm Andrea Scott. Morocco recently built its first air defense station. We talked to our Middle East correspondent about how it's using artillery from several countries and why that's important.
Hello, Agnes. Morocco has been building an air defense base for some time now. Tell us a little bit about that base that it's building.
Satellite images show that Morocco is building and was building an air defense base at Sidi Yahya Al Ghab, which is 60 kilometers to the northeast of its capital, Rabat. Speaking with the satellite imagery experts as well as local Moroccan experts, we could validate that this is an air defense base which has been constructed since 2017, and the construction was completed in August 2020.
Has the government of Morocco released why exactly it's building this base?
This is the first air defense base in Morocco. Of course, there are threats, speaking about UAVs and other fighter jets in the airspace. However, it will include a number of air defense systems to secure the airspace.
What kind of systems are in that airbase itself?
Morocco has been signing contracts and procuring a number of air defense systems, speaking on top of which is the 24 Skydragon 50 air defense systems. It has received from China in 2017. Also, it signed a contract in 2019 for VL Mika with France, which is a $226 million worth deal. And it is working on procuring other air defense systems. Reports claim that Morocco has signed a contract to procure FD-2000, which is the medium to long-range Chinese air defense system. However, Defense News could make sure from the local experts that the contract was not signed. However, it's still negotiating to procure other systems, on top of which is the Israeli Barak 8. And the experts expect this to be announced in 2022.
And that's a lot of different systems from a lot of different countries. How are they managing all those different air defense systems?
True. Usually, when you have a Western and Eastern systems from different origins, some of them are Western, others are Eastern, it is hard to merge them together. However, the Moroccan armed forces have designed the Cobra, which is a command and control system, to merge all the data coming from the different air defense systems, to analyze them and accordingly to take action.
Well, Agnes, thank you for covering this and thank you for joining us. The Air Force and Boeing are still working on the remote vision system for the KC-46A Pegasus. The RVS, as it's called, is a network of cameras and sensors on the KC-46 boom that operators use to refuel other aircraft. In April, the Air Force and Boeing decided to replace the original RVS with a redesigned version that is expected to be fielded in 2023. The aircraft has seen several issues, but this is most prominent, and it's labeled a Category 1 deficiency. The vision system has issues with certain lighting conditions, which increases the risk of a boom scraping a receiving aircraft. But it's not all bad news for the Pegasus. The Air Force Air Mobility Command commander recently authorized it to refuel more aircraft. The Air Force also received the 50th aircraft for its fleet, and Boeing delivered one to Japan in October. The White House has announced $308 million in additional humanitarian assistance for Afghanistan, offering new aid to the country as it edges toward a humanitarian crisis since the Taliban takeover nearly 5 months ago. White House spokesperson Emily Horn said in a statement Tuesday that new aid from the U.S. Agency for International Development will flow through independent humanitarian organizations and will be used to provide shelter, healthcare, winterization assistance, emergency food aid, water, sanitation, and hygiene services. The country's long-troubled economy has been in a tailspin since the Taliban takeover, and nearly 80% of Afghanistan's previous government's budget came from the international community. That money, now cut off, financed hospitals, schools, factories, and government ministries. Desperation for such basic necessities has been further exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as healthcare shortages, drought, and malnutrition. And around the world, Ukrainian reservists are stepping up their training to counter possible aggression from its neighbor. Russia has been building up troops and equipment on its border with Ukraine. Alisa Pankovska is a career cyber trainer and a reservist.
I never wanted to be an object of male protection. That's why I came here to Territorial Defense Forces to have the skills to use the gun to defend myself, to defend my family from possible Russian aggression.
She hopes her training is a deterrent.
If the enemy knew that everybody in a country, or let's say many people in a country, have the skills to use rifles and to defend their home, there will be no situation like in Crimea 2014 or like in Donetsk and Lugansk.
Dmytro Kostikevich is also a Ukrainian reservist who has been training for years.
In 2013, for example, when war was starting, I cannot do nothing. I do not know how to shoot. I do not know what equipment I need. I don't have this equipment. I do not know how to deal with medicine, with engineering, and so on and so forth. Now I think I'm kind of ready to this, but of course not as ready as I want to be.
Ukraine's security is of interest to several countries, but it's not yet enjoying the official and added protections of being a NATO member country.
Everybody in Ukraine clearly understands that NATO right now, they are in fact kind of afraid of Russia, and they are not ready to give us full membership right now. So it's just a long way that we have to go.
Thanks, Daniel. For continued coverage of the Pegasus, make sure to visit defensenews.com. Coming up is a long-awaited contract for optics and news from around the service branches.
The military and defense market is constantly evolving. Stay on top of the latest news with Sightline Media Group's live events. Continue to learn, understand new tools and technologies. We're live. You're on in 3. Defense, government, and industry leaders come together for successful and proven engaging events. You'll gain valuable insight, get the chance to ask questions, all from the comfort of your own home or office. Sign up for our events newsletters and receive alerts for upcoming live streams.
Welcome back. The Army is deciding on which of 2 competitors will build the Army and Marine Corps' replacement for the M4, M16, and the M249 SAW. But it recently announced who will be making the optic that goes on top of the next generation squad weapon. Todd South has more.
Earlier this month, the Army finally selected an optic or a fire control for their new prototype weapon that hasn't actually hit soldiers yet. That optic is called the Next Generation Squad Weapon Fire Control, and they chose the company Vortex Optics, which is also working with Sheltered Wings, a subsidiary, to create this optic. Essentially, it's going to be a computer atop of the new weapon. Now, the weapon itself, the Next Gen Squad Weapon, is still scheduled for a down select between 2 different prototypes later this year in 2022. But the optic has been selected, and it's going to provide all kinds of new capabilities. Just a few of the features that will be in the new fire control include a variable magnetic optic, an etched reticle, a laser rangefinder, a ballistics computer, visible and infrared aiming lasers, a digital overlay, and wireless communications to communicate with goggles and other systems for data collection and sharing. So that's a lot of high-tech stuff, but what does that mean for the soldier in the field? Well, essentially, instead of kind of guessing where your target is on old open iron sights and hoping that you're adjusting appropriately for windage or for elevation, the computer's going to lock you right into target. And with some of the new software they're including in the goggles called Rapid Target Acquisition, the two will marry up, link up, and pair together. And just like you're a fighter pilot or you're a tank commander or you're a gunner on a Bradley, you basically will be walked into the target with the computer-aided marksmanship tools. So essentially, you can basically maybe get first shot, first kill, first time. So this new optic will eventually replace the rifle combat optic, the close combat optic, and the machine gun optic, which are currently on fielded weapon systems out across the Army and the Marine Corps. So we talked with some experts at the Army who are developing this program and will be implementing the fire control system about the capabilities, what this is going to do for soldiers they don't currently have, and what opportunities exist in the future.
There's a number of error budgets that you have when the soldier's engaging a target. You know, the soldier's level of proficiency, his inputs, muscular, breathing, nervousness, being under fire, it certainly does present itself with an awful lot of stress, and the ability to calm your mind, engage the target correctly, apply your principles of marksmanship are most important. Secondary, and probably the biggest error budget that we could technically help mitigate is range estimation. On a standard range where it's 50, 100, 150, 200, you know what your holds are. If the guy's at 347 meters or 289, there's a big difference there. And soldiers having the ability to laser target very quickly, get an adjusted reticle aim point, and pull the trigger has shown that it is going to increase the probability of hit in the future.
So the future capabilities of this particular system, both the weapon and the optic, are really pretty broad. The Army is also developing the Integrated Visual Augmentation System, a really futuristic night vision goggle that does thermal, does navigation, can communicate wirelessly within the squad, and also upload data to a platoon or company level cloud. With this optic, it'll talk to that system in the future, and so you'll basically have an opportunity to see the view of the soldier from the rifle at the company level or beyond, and also within the squad. If you need to kind of show your squad leader who's at a different position on the patrol what you're seeing, you can give them eyes on through your own weapon and through your goggle system once those things are integrated. All the data sharing, all the navigation, all the computer elements are interesting, but the key is it's going to really increase marksmanship, is what experts say. Basically, it's going to walk someone onto a target and give them the capabilities within their own individual service weapon or squad level weapon that have existed in big systems like the Abrams tank or the Bradley fighting vehicle or the Stryker for years. Taking those computer type systems down into a goggle, down into an optic that make that individual weapon of that individual soldier on the battlefield extremely accurate, precise, and also a data gathering tool. Not every soldier or Marine is going to get this optic. It's going to the close combat forces first. So think special operations, infantry, and those support aspects of infantry in the close combat fight, such as scouts or combat engineers. So the next thing we'll be looking for is the Army's selection of which next generation squad weapon prototype they're going to use. That's going to happen later this year. I'm Todd South, reporting for Military Times.
Thanks, Todd. And now for some headlines from around the services. The Navy has added 2 weeks to its standard boot camp, taking the total amount of initial training time from 8 weeks up to 10. Citing a need to better prepare future sailors for life in the fleet, the Navy started to expand basic military training on January 3rd. The added time includes more training in areas such as life skills, mentorship, and personal and professional development as part of a new Sailor for Life module. Topics also include more instruction on sexual harassment and assault prevention training, as well as suicide prevention. And in more training news, it's back to a full PT schedule for the Air Force. For the first time since 2019, the force will have a full year of physical training tests, but now on an updated system. The new regimen allows airmen to mix and match different exercises, including a 1.5-mile run, planks, push-ups, and more. The waist measurement component no longer counts toward the score, and airmen will be grouped into age brackets. Get back at it, airmen. And over in the Marine Corps, the amphibious combat vehicle is set to return to unrestricted waterborne operations after the service says it has developed a new way of using a tow rope for recovery operations. The Corps put a safety halt in early September 2021 on running the ACV, the decades-long project to replace the aging amphibious assault vehicle. In December 2021, the Marine Corps permanently pulled amphibious assault vehicles from regularly scheduled deployments due to concerns over vehicle safety and resource allocation. It was an AAV that sank in July 2020, killing 9 service members on board. That's it for military headlines this week. When we return, personal finance expert Jeanette Mack gives her latest tips on retirement savings accounts. On this edition of Money Minute, Navy Federal Credit Union personal finance expert Jeanette Mack gives her latest tips.
In this day and age, no matter what your age, retirement savings plans are key to a successful financial life. Gone are the days when you could count on pension plans and Social Security to cover all costs during your golden years, especially as pension plans are a rarity and Social Security less certain for future generations. But you do have options, both traditional and unconventional. Traditional retirement savings plans can be 401ks or TSPs with an investment match. You should definitely opt into those, otherwise you're leaving money on the table. Other traditional methods are opening individual retirement accounts, or IRAs. All these plans are tax-deferred, which allow you to contribute tax-free dollars to the account. Taxes are paid only upon withdrawal. Unlike non-traditional plans, also known as Roth 401ks or Roth IRAs, you pay taxes on funds upon contribution to the account. There are also some unconventional retirement alternatives you can add to your game plan, like investing in real estate or the stock market, or even plan to downsize upon retirement to pad your budget. Your retirement strategy can be as unique as you are and tailored to your specific needs. Talk to a great financial advisor to get the best guidance and make the most of your golden years.
Thanks, Jeanette. We'll see you next week. To get more of our coverage, be sure to check out our headlines online at Army, Navy, Air Force, and MarineCorpsTimes.com and DefenseNews.com. To get a list of our top stories every morning in your inbox, subscribe to our Early Bird Brief. And make sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Do you like live content? If so, subscribe to our Military Times YouTube, where we bring you exclusive coverage and we bring it live. The live chat is only open to subscribers, so make sure to sign up. And when we return, Todd South shows us why the Pentagon is looking to increase troop brain activity with stimulation devices. The Pentagon wants to get the most out of your brain, and it's working on stimulation to do it. Todd South brings us more.
This week on Miltech, we're going to talk a little bit about human performance and ways that the Air Force and the Army are getting after how they can improve brain function in training and in operations. One way that scientists have used brain stimulation or electric shocks to the brain, very small tingling, not like electroshock therapy like in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but more tingling type of sensations that cause minor adjustments in brain patterns or brain stimulation for certain parts of the brain, is to use that for depression, anxiety. There's been scientific literature showing that those help those types of disorders. Now, some companies are using that with the VA to help folks with PTSD, TBI, and other cognitive function issues. But as far as training, special operations have been using this for shooting training drills, while drone pilots in the Air Force have been using it to help with target recognition, fatigue, and other types of things that they often confront with spending many hours in front of a screen trying to pay attention to very close detail. So over the last few years, the Air Force Research Laboratory has been looking at transcranial stimulation, basically putting electrodes on the outside scalp of the brain, nothing going inside, just to do this kind of electrical stimulation to the brain. They're measuring the functions and how it helps people focus, how it helps people fight fatigue, and how it helps people pay better attention to small tasks. So instead of just putting electrodes onto the scalp to hit the brain, they're actually hitting the nerve in the neck or the cervical region, essentially putting that electrical stimulation into the nerve that will then affect the body and how it feels, so that the brain and the body are communicating to each other. The electrical impulses will kind of adjust and attenuate that communication. By doing that kind of stimulation, they can lower heart rate, they can change breathing patterns, they can actually help with stress reactions such as PTSD. So it's also a therapeutic effect as well as a training effect, and they're seeing it both with veterans who suffer from those types of disorders and also for current service members just trying to get better at their job and better at the tasks that they do that are so high demanding. Just last year, the Air Force Research Laboratory released a white paper on vagus nerve stimulation and brain stimulation specifically for pilots. Now, a company called GammaCore has been doing some of this work with the VA, helping out patients with those types of disorders, and is also working to get into the space of training and stimulation for better performance. For at least the last few years, on a small individual basis, some teams within the special operations community have been training these for muscle memory type tasks such as shooting or target acquisition, target identification. And they do this through a small cap that's put on the head, similar to what's in a laboratory, but a little more durable for the shooting range. And basically they'll practice a task, practice those sequence of events and steps toward better shooting, while stimulating the brain to help them learn faster and actually get through those courses quicker than they would normally do without the stimulation. There's still some debate within the research, however, because some studies have found that the training stimulation helps in the learning process, but if the stimulation isn't applied later, it doesn't have the same effect when the actual action is taken in a real-world event. So they're trying to work out some of the kinks with that type of the training aspects of it, but still it holds a lot of promise for helping both with disorders and with training and focus. And one way in which the stimulation could help everybody is in terms of fatigue. Pretty much every job in the military, there's going to be a time when you're running short on sleep, you're sleep deprived. And they've found with some of the studies that the electrostimulation can help with fatigue and help keep people alert in a more targeted way, better than a lot of drugs or even things like caffeine. For instance, caffeine can have an effect on heart rate, an effect on digestion. Basically, it's a kind of a blunt force tool to kind of hammer your system into staying awake. But with the electrostimulation, it can target certain areas of the brain versus trying to hit the whole body at once, so you don't have those kind of side effects like you would from drinking too much coffee. The kind of companion piece to this piece of the technology with the stimulation is camera analysis. Essentially, they're taking a lot of cameras and they're viewing how the eyes are getting fatigued, how the pupils are dilating, where the eyes are tracking to see if the person is getting fatigued, and then they can apply the stimulation instead of just having the stimulation applied the entire time while they're doing the task. So it's kind of a tailored approach to stimulating the brain when necessary, but not overdoing it. Some early testing with this stimulation has shown doubling the rates of memory and doubling the rates at which someone can learn a skill or a task. So it really could shorten training, especially some very specific and highly technical training that requires a lot of focus. Now, there still are some dangers with this. It's only really done in a laboratory setting or under certain kind of provisions and supervisions. I wouldn't recommend plugging it in a wall outlet with some wires and zapping your brain to study for the next test. So the actual brain and cranial stimulation has been going on for more than a couple decades in the medical community. And its applications to training have only come about in the last few years. But the Air Force has been dealing with this at least the last 5 years, and with their new white papers and research are trying to apply this specifically to drone training right now. So while it may still be in a laboratory and a kind of a research phase at this point, it's being applied to actual airmen, actual pilots, and could be part of a training mode in the near future. And for the Militech segment on Defense News Weekly, this is Todd South.
And that's all we have time for this week. Please visit us on militarytimes.com and defensenews.com for more coverage. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.